Proportional Response. Book 1, Chapter 25, Part 2, Courts in Session. Karthan Ranesh pushed some buttons on his radar station and had to refrain from tapping his claws on the side of that same station. He found himself, again, cursing the Admiralty, luck, fate, and whatever bad choices he ever made to end up here. Months of slogging through dust and mud with the stink of unwashed humans in my nose. They tell me I can have my pick of open stations. And they stick me here, on a ship that is due to sit all dark and stealthy, hiding by the Council world. Watching the Penigra fleet sit at the edge of the system and lick their fur, or feathers. Damn it. I wanted to watch Isoldan ships explode. Still, I get to tell the grandkids that I was there, in the Council system when the most historic vote ever took place. He suppressed a chuckle as he, like everyone else on the bridge, watched the Holocaust from the Council chambers. I can see it now. But Grandpa, what did you do during that historic vote? I sat and watched it on the CC Holo. Pretty much the same as you watching it in the Holo tank in class. Except I was sitting on my claws when other ships in the fleet were out blowing up Sultan. Now shut up and get me a sweet roll. Well, I guess there are. The Penigra fleet suddenly started warming their singularity engines, and he heard a comms ping. He looked over at his captain, currently lounging almost indolently in her command chair. She hit a button, looked at her private screen, swore, buckled herself in properly, slapped the red alert button, and started issuing orders. Her voice rang out across the bridge. All stations, we have new orders. Hellmanned engines, get us on course for the planet, right now, at flank speed. Her helm officer shot her a questioning look, which she ignored, but Karthan felt his brows furl. If all ships are moving at flank speed, the fleet will be awfully spread out by the time we hit orbit. He felt the deck plates shudder beneath his feet, as the engines pushed from as ready as they could, minus staying dark, to forming a singularity in record time. The captain continued. Ops, those shuttles you were keeping prepped. Tell everyone to button them up and be ready to launch first wave the moment their ships translate down from FTL. As soon as you have those shuttles, ready your crews are to start prepping the next wave to leave as quickly as possible. Karthan stopped paying attention to the captain's orders and concentrated on his scope. He felt his fur flatten and his claws try to come out as the Penigra fleet changed formation prior to their FTL jump. That formation. How? Why? So much for telling the stories to grandkids, or getting to have kids. If those really are Penigram warships, none of us are getting out of here alive. So help me, if I get out of this alive, I am going to start being much more careful about what I wish for. He turned his head to report what he saw to his captain. Gilad stood behind the doors of opposition outside the Republic's Voter Assembly Theatre. Theatre is right. A bunch of posturing and speeches on matters that have already been decided in private rooms. Posturing to keep the unwashed masses arguing with one another. She looked down at her video feed at the cavernous room on the other side of the door. She panned the full circle of the room, with its thousands of seats facing the center raised stage. The holodisplay above the stage displayed a countdown until the start of the special session, called to discuss what they were going to do about the fact that Kilintars and the current Republic Prime Minister's failings had lost them leadership of the League. TTS. The timer still showed several minutes when it winked out, and the woman who was fourth, no fifth now, since some schmuck killed her favorite daughter, in line of people Gilad hates most, took the stage. The fact that they let that woman take on the Prime Minister role in the first place makes me want to bust in there and just shoot everyone. She forced herself to take a deep breath and be calm. I'm going to need them, or at least most of them, for a while yet. Still, thinning the ranks of the new order might just be in order fairly soon. She smiled to herself at the word play. The Prime Minister spoke as soon as she got to center stage. I am calling this meeting to order. There are some who have not entered yet. True, but you all know the rules and know why they exist, and you know that time is important here. so you can all quit your muttering about me, locking out a rival faction. They want to play stupid time-wasting games at a time like this, then they can keep their counsel to themselves. The woman then looked up to the balcony reserved for the Master of Guards and called, "Seal the doors, let none enter until I signal otherwise. The Grand Assembly of Voters is in session." Jalat felt satisfaction well up within her as she watched the guards stationed at each door ceremonially lower the steel over each door. The doors themselves were armored, of course, and the real defense was the locking mechanisms that the lowering of the bar triggered. But it made for nice ceremony, and it gave the mewling toads who called themselves voters a sense of safety. Would be a shame if someone came along and shattered it. She felt a little red come into her eyes as she heard the bar slam home on the other side of the door where she stood. She watched her feed and let the guards get out of the way, then looked up and let the bloody thirsty grin she felt show through as she spoke. Now, the door of opposition blew inward, shattering into tiny pieces. Arranging to replace the real door with one that would shatter the way she wanted without injuring anyone on the other side, much had been a difficult feat, but she'd pulled it off. All eyes turned to her, and she struck her most intimidating pose, then strode through the empty doorway as if she already owned the place. She kept the dark snarl on her face and kept her eyes focused on the Prime Minister. The woman turned to her and screamed, "Jalat, how dare you? Even entry through the door of opposition is forbidden when..." Jalat advanced at a steady pace as her troops fanned out behind her and ran to secure the room. She spoke in a normal voice and kept her tone even, but every speaker in the room took up her feed and magnified it beyond all reason, and all limits that were supposed to be on the sound system. "Shut up, you simpering fool. You have led us down the path of ruin, and the rest of you have followed her over a cliff, despite my tireless best efforts. I am here now, however, to save you, and the great Zoltan race, from yourselves." Duke Kazla sat uneasy in his chair on the Ventus Council chamber platform. The energy of the chamber had changed a few minutes ago, from something almost festive to one of decided unease. It happened when I heard my human guards get some sort of message on their comms. His own guards had stuck their heads through the door as if to check and make sure he, his wives, and Anibal were all right. He'd noticed many of the other human guards, regardless of their uniform, doing the same with their respective charges. They had then closed and sealed the door. Where the heavens is Henry? For that matter, where are the Penigra and the Zoltan? They should all... The door to his platform cycled open without warning, and he was immediately up with his weapon half drawn before he noticed that the person advancing on him was human. He and Golner put their guns back in their hidden holsters, and he took the note the man offered to him. His eyes widened when he read it. "The Penigra fleet is no longer holding position outside the Council system. It is moving inbound at what would be flank speed for a Zoltan fleet of that size. No Penigra shall directly participate in combat. We have a plan for this, but I need you to send Enable and your wives to the human embassy now and tell them to tell your embassy staff to do whatever the nice human says." Kazlor felt a moment of fear as the implications of the note set in. Directly. How? How in all nine hells did we miss that? Gods and goddesses, spare us. He handed the note to Yoro, then looked at his wives and Enable. "Go with the human now. Do whatever he asks you to do, and don't argue. This is an order, and we don't have time. Tell the embassy staff to do the same thing." He held up a hand to all of them. "We need to trust the humans this time, and move. Go." Each of his wives shot him a dirty look, then stepped forward and gave him a quick kiss before they departed. He clapped Enable on the shoulder and motioned for the door. The man had read the note at that point and hurried away. By the time they made it out the door, Henry, the last ambassador to make his way into the chamber, had taken his seat. "We still have no Sultan nor a Penigra, of course, but I have official notice from the Penigra that he isn't coming." His console chimed, and his eyebrows rose as a message came in bearing Jalat's comcodes. Apparently, the Zoltan are going to be here after all, if remotely. Another look around the council chamber showed that most platforms contained the head ambassador, and only the head ambassador for each nation. They are taking the humans at their word. That is good. We may all live to see the end of this day after all. Henry, I hope you know what you are doing. The general commotion in the halls behind the ambassadorial platforms had increased even as he considered, and he felt grateful when Henry finished counting heads and shut the doors. The silence which then reigned through the chamber, those doors had outstanding soundproofing, seemed almost deafening. Kaz leaned back in his seat and focused on the screen, rather than craning to look down at Henry, as the man began to call the council to order.